What's happening, everybody? In this video, I'll be addressing some quick updates on the VentureMap community, product, platform, the process, the people, all the P's, apparently. All jokes aside, we're going to get to the headline quickly, and that is recently, as of today, actually, we have one spot opening up in our VentureMap operator tier. Now, this is actually something I haven't done before, which is actively promote or announce the VentureMap operator tier. This is our $1,000 a month retainer where I am embedded in a fractional integrator's capacity as an operator within your business. That looks like me actually executing on tasks and connecting with you both live and asynchronously to devise a strategy and then execute on it. It's like the thinnest slice of a fractional COO engagement that you can pretty much get. Until, of course, the AI COO work in VentureMap Elite is complete, but we're some ways away from that still. Anyways, we've got one seat opening up, one spot available. I do expect this spot to be filled before month's end, if not much sooner. So if you've been in the space of, wow, I actually want to get a little extra bandwidth allocated to task execution, to producing, now's the time to lock it in. This one-on-one, high-touch consulting and coaching work is something I've done for many years in varying capacities. The $1,000 a month seems to be quite effective, as everyone else in the group has been on for going on a year since we opened it up. We opened it up and within a month we're fully subscribed and haven't had any openings since we opened it up. So I expect that to be the same here, except for one case, actually, one case. We had someone come in a little bit later in the year. So that being said, if you'd like my help turning your VentureMap into a masterpiece, next steps are easy. Book a discovery call. We'll connect for 15, 20 minutes, talk about the big ideas, how it works, and we'll ensure that the engagement structure, all of the sliders associated with the scope of work and whatnot are finely tuned to your specific needs. And then we'll move into the initial month. There's a 30-day guarantee on the service, 100% satisfaction with a refund and all that good stuff. So that's the quick update. That's the shameless plug. Now let's get into some of the other stuff, the value add stuff. Okay, so that's operator. Again, I usually don't talk about operator. Since we devised the strategy on how to productize that narrow field specialty within a COO engagement and deliver it at the shockingly accessible rate of $1,000 a month, we've been dutifully studying how to move the needle most effectively in the real world for our operator clients and productize everything we can so we can continue building upon that, basically delivering more and more at the same level of investment, just being a force multiplier essentially. And then transitioning all of that learning, all of that productization downstream into VentureMap Elite. And now, of course, in our free community, everyone that's in the group has the access to our free growth plan, which is something I'm still stoked about more than ever. Someone told me the other day, oh yeah, it sounds like it's just going to be a boilerplate thing that it's just the same thing for everybody. It's like, actually, no, it is a 100% custom growth plan that's AI enabled. It's not too exotic because all of the talk of automations and AI agents these days, but that's exactly what we do. We have a very well-structured intake that's been used dozens, if not hundreds of times by now. And we'll ask you a few questions that allows the AI models the best possible chance to produce a version 1 at a high quality. In other words, we wanted to do that 80-20 split. It's pretty high leverage, and if you haven't got your growth plan, now's the time to do it. Just simply go into the school group and right into here. And let's see. Oh yeah, just pull this up. Like half the people in our testimonials on this about page are from our elite operator tier, and we've had a lot of fun working with them. There's a couple in here that are not mentioned, of course. Let's see. So if you don't have your intake yet, simply come into that top pinned post. You can click here. You can go into classroom, this giant thing that says intake. You can do that here and click this button. So trying to make it as easy as possible. This is something, and so that's that. If you don't know what the growth plan looks like, if it's like, why would I want that? Think about the theory of constraints. We want to apply that to our business. We want to understand two things. Okay, planning horizon and how that's integrated with a long-term vision for the company. As a founder, we have a drive, we have a vision, and it's important that we're able to clarify that. One of the most important roles of a COO, the second in command, is to enable strategy formulation, not necessarily to drive that in terms of the inputs, but to help facilitate and extract the data required for the strategy to come to life and make meaningful contributions. So that's strategy formulation. Another way to think of that is strategic planning. So when we have a planning horizon, that means we're talking of 3 years. Like we're talking about 1 year, we're talking about 90 days, and then we go down the rabbit hole further and further. So until it's literally to daily. And that's strategy execution. It's one thing to say what we want to do, it's another thing to do it. The second in command's role is to lead strategy execution. It's to spearhead that. And you can't execute strategy unless it's clearly defined and everyone is able to know what they're supposed to do. So what you get with as a member of the free community and everyone in VentureMap Elite gets on a quarterly basis is a overview of the roadmap. So it's think of the highest level overview. This is the version 1 growth plan. So we have our 3-year picture, 1-year plan, and our 90-day rocks or objectives if you're not an EOS fan. EOS being Entrepreneur Operating System, which is a great series of books and all this other cool stuff. Talked about why they call it rocks in other videos, but you can think of it as the thing you got to carry for 12 weeks straight. Or they like to say that the time is like a container. And if you have to fill a container, a jar with rock, you start with the big ones first, medium ones and small ones, and then smaller ones in sand. So if you have a few big rocks to fill up your quarter, medium tasks and small tasks and sort of day-to-day things will fill up the rest easily. When you're considering the variables inside of the 3-year picture, we keep it pretty high level. It's basically the metrics and like revenue and our measurables and what we actually are going to be tracking and doing some description on what it actually looks like. From there, every step closer that we take, it gets more defined. So from 1 year, we basically are going to have some big objectives or outcomes that would have been driven in addition to the metrics and measurables. Lastly, our 90-day planning horizon is a bit more detailed. These are the big initiatives. These are the projects that we need to execute on in order to be on track with our long-term vision. And that's the strategy roadmap, the strategic roadmap rather. And another term for it, just semantics, is growth plan version 1. That's what we can produce through the intake. It is pretty much done instantaneously now. Special thanks to, again, doing the reps many countless times, refining the process, and frankly, how cheap it is to run API credits. We basically give this away for free now, which is honestly a dream come true for me. It's something I wanted. I wish I had this when I was a technology accelerator in South Florida, just starting out, trying to wrap my head around a lot of this. I had to figure out a lot of this on my own. And being able to give it away to members of the community is a real privilege. And I'm stoked to see how we can continue to make it even better. For those who take the next level And this is what we do, of course, with our operator clients and with the VentureMap Elite members who are high performing, to say the least, and have the available cognitive load. And is we basically will say, okay, cool, dude. So we've got a definition of the big things we need to do, right? We got 1 and 2 and 3, et cetera, et cetera. These are the things that we need to do in the next 12 weeks. And here's basically who's going to run them. Well, after that, you need to define it a bit more. So if you've ever been in an engagement with a personal trainer, it's like the questions will basically go, cool. So what are your goals coming to the gym? It's like, oh, I want to lose weight or I want to get stronger. So sweet. Great plan, bro. Let's talk about what that actually looks like. I want to lose 30 pounds by December for my sister's wedding. And I want to train 3 times a week for an hour. And I'm going to track all of my calories and I'm going to get my blood panels ran and I'm going to have an accountability partner and all of these types of things, right? We make the goals smart, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound, all of this good stuff, right? This is like level 1. This is very fundamental. As executives and solopreneurs, this is a foundational capability set. And it's the importance of this cannot be overstated. If you can't make your own goals smart, no one else is going to do it for you. And if they do, it's most likely going to be a divergence from your intent. That doesn't mean we can't enlist the external support for production, which we definitely can. That's why second in commands can be so helpful. That's why fractional COOs can be so incredibly helpful because they enable the strategy formulation process, like I've shared previously. So this is really what we will keep in the VentureMap Elite community for some time, just because the reciprocation required to produce this, there's a human in the loop that's needed, the human being the end user, the client, the member, that's you in this case. And what we found is most solopreneurs just do not have the intellectual wherewithal to comb through a whole like high level overview and provide meaningful insights back on what needs to be changed asynchronously. So what we do for all of the guys in the free community, gals, is basically produce a briefing video. It's like a 4-minute custom branded read over on the video for you. And it's even better than that because actually we'll meet with you one-on-one. So you don't have to do it asynchronously because it seems like a big pain point for most people to actually sit alone with an artifact, some collateral, a deliverable like a deck in this case, and actually read it long. And even if it's read to them, we found that most people really struggle with that. Even if there's like a hook and it's gamified and personalized and it happens really quick and it's very concise. We have yet to crack the code on how to get solopreneurs to sit still long enough to cut into their own plan. So once you complete the intake, you basically are just driven straight to a booking page. We book and we can connect that same afternoon, the next day even, and we'll come to the table with this. So we have actually something to talk about instead of it being what most free communities are, which is like this bait and switch BS where, it's, hey, come to a free clarity call. And the entire call is just trying to find a way for you to empty your pockets and join some sort of paid program. Of course, we have a paid program. We have a couple of them actually, but this is like, how do we open the aperture to find more values aligned entrepreneurs and founders who we can collaborate with long-term to make a meaningful difference in their business, to drive the outcomes that they want through our unique methodology, perspective, et cetera. Because that's the most important part. The most important criteria for the COO job is not technical expertise or like technical proficiency or domain expertise or even industry experience, relevant industry experience. Although those are all very important. It's actually personality fit with the CEO, because you could have a master in terms of like technical proficiencies. You could have a level 10 Jedi who's been around for decades in the industry that's relevant business, the onboarding business, and just a savage experience and expertise and technical proficiencies. But if there's a rift at a personality level, or really at a cultural and a values alignment level, it will not work. The engagement just simply won't work because it can't be just professional. The boundaries of the professional engagement necessarily have a personal element to them because building a business for a founder is inherently personal. They have to pour out so much of their heart and soul into the company for it to work, for it to be authentic, that it's one thing if you are managing a vendor, you've got a graphic designer, you've got a media buyer, or you've got an accountant, or you've got a team member, a virtual assistant, or something like that. It can be 100% professional, very well structured, and then the humanity can be sort of the notable and culturally relevant element to that kind of differentiates you from a employee experience standpoint and preserves retention and engagement that's attractive from the executive level. In other words, we can put in the human piece to that where it makes the most sense to preserve engagement and longevity for our team members. But this is a hilarious term. I think it's great. My wife thinks it's terrible, but it's some of my buddies brought it up. My business owner friends, actually, they're members of the operator tier as well. It's the open kimono. You don't go open kimono with individual contributors because inherently as a founder, you're staring into the abyss. It's something I realized as a younger man earlier in my career, how different the experience is as an individual contributor, as an employee in an organization versus a founder. As a founder, you spend potentially years staring into the abyss and eating glass. And many times it feels like a descent towards madness. And the thing that drives you isn't a promise of outsized economic returns necessarily. And it's the sense that you have a calling, you have a significant purpose to live out through this oftentimes excruciating process that is building a business from nothing and leading an organization, regardless of how small, even if you're a solopreneur. That's true. You have to pour out your heart and soul. So to have someone in close proximity riding shotgun with you, there is a gradient of the engagement where saying mind, body, soul is kind of cliche and cheesy, but there has to be a brain coupling that takes place where the vision becomes coherently shared between the two, and a very robust level of psychological safety is present where we can have the hard conversations on the ugly things that are within the business that need to be addressed. But we can also have that rare, oftentimes very rare moment of letting, and for the CEO, oftentimes letting their heart soar with the possibilities of the business and doing so in a way that they don't feel judged, doing so in a way that they feel supported, truly supported. I can speak from personal experience without putting any names out there. And I won't say family necessarily because that's like putting names out there. But there's some individuals that I've known now for years. And it's funny because you can hear other people talk about friends, as an example, quote unquote friends, not supporting you. And I've always found that funny. I'm a bit of a lone wolf, so I count my friends on one hand and still have a few fingers left over. The few folks that I have known for over a decade now, we're in very different places than we were at 19 years old in the Marine Corps, boots on the ground in Helmand Province, smoking and drinking and getting up to no good part of life. And it's interesting. It's interesting how even the people that you've known and you've gone through so much of life with, they often common sense you would lead you to believe that those types of people would be among the first to really support you, and you can share your vision and your heart's passion and what you believe the Lord is calling you to achieve, to work on. And what you'll find oftentimes is their support is hollow. And much like exposing a sprout, a seedling, to the withering heat of of a summer sun, or a deluge of like hurricane style rains, like seedlings and sproutlings are so vulnerable to environmental threats and from environmental exposure. And ideas are like that because one element is really creative, one element is spiritual, one element is emotional, and yet another, of course, intellectual and strategic. And those things blend together, they weave together to form this sort of consciousness cocktail. And that maybe is a little bit new age, but it's a space within the mind. And many founders benefit from externally processing, from having it pulled out, but also giving them a floor from which they can pour out, right? Where they can actually let their minds expand and into more of a blue sky space and blow the roof off and stretch. And oftentimes what happens in a session where it's done right, and conversations when that's done, is we're able to cast such a wide net that we encounter a few things that we haven't ever considered before. We encountered a direction or a perspective or a facet that it's really unique. We're able to draw relational connections between things and patterns that are non-linear, that were non-obvious from the default mode of consciousness, from the regular day-to-day rhythmic thinking. And that's so important. It's so important. And if you can't have that, you can't really have the most important aspect of the relationship, which is enabling the CEO to do their most important job, which is vision setting, determining where things have to go. And that's a big example. And of course, every conversation doesn't look like that, or nothing would ever get done. But that's a really important piece I've come to find. And that's the personal element. The trust has to be there. And that doesn't come cheap. That doesn't come easy. It doesn't come quickly. It's an investment, not just of money, right? You have to pay for that. But it comes, and it doesn't come quickly. It's impossible to sit down with somebody one time, two times, even 10, and really feel at a visceral level that like psychological safety is sufficient to connect at a level of transparency that most people wouldn't feel comfortable even talking to many of their close friends about, or their longtime friends, I should say. For the very reason that many times with longtime friends, there's a underlying suspicion that there's not actually a meaningful level of support. There's not actually I want you to succeed genuinely type of intent coming from those longtime friends that you've known, because most people don't have a really aggressive approach to growing. Most people don't have a really intentional approach to self-awareness and self-improvement, like actively seeking out ways to build character, to overcome adversity and obstacles in their life, and who believe down to the cellular level in what you put in is what you get out in life. So it is a rare thing to find trusted second in command, and being in that role for so long and what is now dozens of long-term meaningful engagements. I've learned a lot. As a number one man in VentureMap, it gives me the ability to say, oh, I know what I really was inspired by when First Name here did this type of thing. When they were running the show at their company, when they did that, it really put wind in my sails, and it built so much belief. It lifted morale. You could feel the momentum and the alignment and the unity. And then I can contrast that with, man, I remember when so did this, and that, yeah, in some parts of your mind you can't control. If you've ever done any significant periods of meditation, you know that the mind is a thing of its own, and you have a degree of control, but only so much. Its thoughts spontaneously emerge in consciousness, as many practitioners will acknowledge. And so this, in that vein, many thoughts will emerge as you see leaders display incompetence and poor decision making and frankly bad character. And you think, ooh, yeah. Those thoughts come up in the back of your mind where you think behind the veneer of professionalism, beyond the previously agreed upon terms of the economic exchange, this scope of work or the services that are being rendered. It's like, but behind that, at the human level, you think, I don't think I want to work with this person anymore. I don't think that I like this person that much, or I don't. We said it differently. I think that our interests are not aligned, and I think we're incompatible at the levels that are most meaningful, like the cultural level. The when there's incompatibility with prioritization on respect, as an example, just like a common level of courtesy and mutual respect. For example, when people are like condescending and demeaning, like in the workplace, that is, as a COO, as someone who's been responsible for teams of dozens of people, I've built the principle that there's zero tolerance for that type of behavior, because that's the type of thing that can be like a cancer, that can be like a rot in an organization, and can have second and third order effects that are really hard to turn the tides on. When it's coming from the CEO, when it's coming from the founder, it's, oh, that's ugly. And that's always the heaviest weight on the scale for me, is to find people where there's an alignment at the cultural level, where there's compatibility with the core values and the principles that we live our lives by may not always be the exact same, but there's shared principles where it matters. And the vision that's being set forth is something that I can get really on board with. And of course, there's a personality fit where there's not a continuous ego rub, which does happen, right? There can be that friction with egos, and there can be and that maybe from insecurity or immaturity, a number of other things, but finding that every level of sync. And then, of course, after all that sort of philosophical and perhaps abstract and soft and implicit stuff is felt out, that meaningful trust is established over doing great work together and delivering meaningful outcomes that drive ROI for the company. That's, again, at that executive level, what's going to make justify intellectually, that's the intellectual justification for any engagement. That's a part of the iceberg that's above the surface. Then, of course, technical proficiency and domain expertise and relevant industry experience and all those things are super important. So that being said, we have one spot available for Venture Map Operator. And I would say, if what I'm sharing now resonates, I would love to invite you onto a call. Let's connect, let's discuss, let's see where you're at, and we can determine if it's the right move forward to run on a trial, a 30-day trial, and we'll do some great work. And if it moves the needle and there's the compatibility at the levels that are meaningful for us, then we'll look at moving on to bigger and better obstacles over the course of the quarter to come. Okay, but for the rest of my wonderful people and the Venture Map community, I'd say, if you do not have your Q4 growth plan, get it. It's a video. It's simple. Oh yeah, and it's a time. I spent over an hour with the last guy, which was a lot of fun. Shout out to Michael if you're watching this. And we'll cut through the first one, we'll mark it up and tell GPT where he went crazy. And we'll figure out what needs to be revised to make it like actually accurate and usable. And after the call, we'll get dialed in on V2. You'll get a nice video. It's fun. It's great. It's all the things it needs to be. And then you want to move forward from there. I've talked about this in a recent video, and I'm just going to say it again, but it's coming. This strategy execution sprint. I have been furiously reading Hormozy's book, $100 million money models, and just racking my brain with ACQ AI. And I'll tell you what, I'm basically ready to roll on this thing. It is going to be beastly. This is, I don't know any other way to say it. It's going to be insane, but it's $1 and it's basically $1. And I want to talk more about it in another video, but it's basically going to be this guy here. And then of course the upsell mechanism, because it's kind of like a meta description of helping. A lot of my work is helping people do a lot of this type of stuff, but the upsell is, I think it's going to just be VentureMap Elite. I'm kind of going in and out of that, but I think it's just going to be VentureMap Elite for the time being. And then because I'm still in the process of reconciling crawl, walk, run. I'm still in the process of reconciling the value ladder and an ascension pathway and the way that we have our business established right now versus if I was to force fit it into the money models framework today, it would be a bit of I think it would be too much change too quickly that I would not have the depth of understanding sufficient to render quality service in the back end, much less sell it on the front end. So we're just going to start incrementally, right? Just enough, just in time, Toyota manufacturing style, practicing what we preach. And we're just going to march into it. I'm really excited about this because it's going to back me into a corner and it's going to put me in hot water and pinch me a bit to produce and to automate and productize and deliver at scale, which that level of repetition, that level of volume is going to make this thing what it really needs to be, which is, and for a year ago, I was saying I wanted to basically find the highest leverage thing across sort of all of our founding members and productize that and then use that as a free thing. And we've done that. We've been shifting value downstream in a way that's coherent with the uplift in production capabilities we've received from emerging technologies. And we've got 100x uplift on production. So it makes sense that we have a pretty significant amount of value added downstream. In other words, delivering to the people we serve. It'd be hard to face your creator and say that you hoarded, all the value back in just because you wanted higher margins. There's so much work to be done. It's insane. And when you are sitting in the space of a COO, you can plainly see that. So I'm not afraid to say, hey, we're going to take a fraction. We're going to take a tenth. We're going to take 100th of the income that we used to make from this type of service, but it's going to be more automated. It's going to be more streamlined. We can help more people. And the good news is there is like an insane amount of stuff that we can work on. So it's just one more thing that needs to get done. Internalizing capabilities, maturing organizational maturity, and effective strategy execution is the name of the game. It's what it's all about. And driving to the point where we can sell an organization at attractive terms. So yeah, I'm stoked for the $1 strategy execution sprint. It's going to be pretty sweet. There's some stuff in here that I'm proud of, I'm excited about, and I just got one little guy here that needs to be banged out, but that's just going to be a sell then build type of thing. One of the first person who comes through this is going to get, usually I just do this manually, but that's what I mean. When you get pinched, you got to execute. The WBS capability, this is another game changer. I'm excited for myself for this. Being able to have a visual diagram of all the tasks needed for the quarter is so valuable. And then being able to see those contextualized across time through a Gantt chart, awesome. Plugging them in directly into a Kanban, so legit. And then working with me directly on setting up that weekly and daily cadence for execution. So there's going to be a couple other surprise and delights on the backside of the fulfillment sort of experience. And it'll basically field directly up into Venture Map Elite, which is, that's this thing right here is basically this entire thing. So the whole $1 offer is just this, which is cool. And technically, to be truthful, it's these things. I just spread it out for ease of understanding and just to build the journey in a way that it's straightforward. But yeah, these top two here are what everyone else is basically going to pay $1 for. And if they dig it, then, and I think, just to be clear, I think what will happen is after we get through a number, an undetermined number, maybe we'll go to 2 or 3, and I'm like, okay, that's plenty. Maybe it'll have to be 30, and it's going to depend on ultimately a number of things. But what I know is we're going to have desirability hypotheses validated or invalidated, and we're going to have feasibility hypotheses validated or invalidated. In other words, the things that we think people are going to find really desirable, we're going to learn and test that. And the way that we think we can deliver it, we're going to learn and test it. Assuming we find that we can scratch the itch and solve a meaningful problem, and that the experience is generally meaningful, at least at the MVP level, then we'll continue on. And then just based on how complex some of the stitching together of the automations and the agents and all that good stuff is on the backside, it could take us 3 people, could take us 30 people, but it will eventually turn into just a do-it-yourself kit. So it's $1 for the kit, and it's a full-blown experience, and there's stuff that'll be done for you and sent to you, and AI will basically help. But and then we'll basically preserve lots of time and stuff where I'm working with you directly in VME, and that's how that will go. All right. So again, opening the aperture. And then the people that come into VME, of course, they get working. I get to work with them directly, hands-on, one-on-one production on company culture, especially like tone of voice prompts and stuff like that, which is critical for copywriting and direct response marketing and hiring and everything else. Brand style, working with you directly on the visuals, on the creative, on the identity of the brand, what sort of the coolest stuff ever. And then we get into, again, even more cool stuff, which is business architecture, all done. This is live time workshops. I'm spending my time executing for you in the business. This is like literally all operator tier stuff that we've done over the last year. Now it's $100 a month. And same with content marketing. Once you get to this stage, you get 3 months free as of now on Media Machine, which means we'll just be executing on building you out static posts and carousels and video clips and everything else, which is awesome. We're in the process of establishing a cold outreach engine. This is like the amalgamation of dozens of thought leaders in the space. So we'll have a full, insanely detailed series of automations and SOPs established that you could basically flip the switch. We'll come in, help you set up the tools, set up the tech, and source the leads, craft the campaigns. And it's like within 2 weeks, basically, you're sending whatever it is, 1,000 emails a day, more, 1,500 emails a day. So that's that. Then sales funnels, we've got some sweet resources that we're going to leverage for this. We have done funnel designs for a long time, special thanks to training from Goose and Son. There's some AI stuff that we're using to help people. Everyone in Venture Map Elite has a Go High Level sub account. So we have the mechanism without any additional expense on the end user side, which is awesome. And there's some new AI stuff that has been made recently that you can basically have a custom template generated through AI for any page, and then just pull that in, kind of like a snapshot, but like a GHL. It's basically allows us to cut down what used to take weeks and turn it into an afternoon, maybe a week tops, if you consider revisions. From there, again, I have so many favorite things, but this is what we get to focus on after we cut through all that, which is customer experience and employee experience, EX and CX. And that's this stuff. That's the real detailed determination of what we're doing when and how it works and all that cool stuff. And I'll work directly with you to map all of that out and operationalize it. So it's not just a blueprint in Miro, but it's actually integrated with where it's happening in the real world. be it the CRM, the project management tool, Stack, or whatever else we're using. Okay. And then lastly, this is the last one to this particular journey, though the first, in another sense, which is AI enablement. And we're going to look at how to best integrate artificial intelligence into the organization. At this point, we're going to have so much established. We can say, okay, cool, for content marketing, for cold outreach, for funnels, for sales, for post-purchase fulfillment, we already have heat mapped all of these areas. So we already know what we can use to reduce time. Moreover, by this point, we've already gone through a quarter or 2 quarters of consistent formulation and execution strategy. And then we can say, here's kind of what we're looking at in terms of what you're spending your time on. And unambiguously, we can see what's being prioritized and what's being executed on. So we can say, we need to bring some efficiencies here and how these are the tools that will help that happen. And then we'll field that into the quarterly planning process and execution rhythm. And then we just have all the other tons of additional insane stuff in here that I'm not even going to get into right now. Okay. And then the living element to VentureMap Elite is the calendar. And that is where we meet on a weekly basis to, first of all, we do a hangout. We have a coffee hour, or sometimes it goes longer. Sometimes we do an hour and a half or more, but like a coffee call. And we just hang out and shoot the breeze. It's honestly one of my favorite times of the entire week. It's great conversation. And let's see, somebody said something about it recently. Bingo. Lynn Caton. She is a legend, just salt of the earth, solid gold of a human being. And she said it better than I probably could. And so that's a coffee hour. We do that once a week. We have a lot of fun. We just connect and we talk, and it's great organic conversation. Likewise, we have our weekly planning session. Is our second meeting every week. And actually, Kate said something recently about this. It's awesome. Transforming to-do into ta-da. I really enjoy the weekly session, get all my tasks out of my head, and then the Trello board. As a founder, there's so many pieces. It's great to dedicate time and get the strategy straight. So if you are like, for example, if you have a COO, you have an operations lead, they'll typically be responsible for facilitating that weekly rhythm, that cadence of, hey guys, what did we do last week? Where are we at now relevant to like what we said we needed to do this quarter? What issues and challenges and obstacles are we facing that need to be addressed? What tasks are being rolled over? What opportunities need to be executed on? What are the to-dos for the week ahead? What are the risks and mitigations that could prevent us from actually executing on those to-dos? And now let's get those things into our task lists. Let's commit to getting those tasks time boxed and break. Let's get it done. And then that's that weekly business review function. That's super important. And many solopreneurs and founders, they don't have that for themselves. They know it's important, but they don't do it for themselves. So we do that for you. It's a distributed hybrid level 10 meeting or weekly business review. That's always fun, always productive. It's great. It's a fusion between virtual co-working or body doubling. If you know that, there's periods of time where we're all executing our own individual thing. But then there's like group and hybrid time where I'll be facilitating which part of the exercise we're on. And there'll be some level of dialogue, and then we will break into it. So it's great. That was experimental, but it's just been going swimmingly for the last, I don't know, I guess a couple of months now. All right, so that's all. That's the update. I covered a lot. If you have questions, let me know. VentureMap community, if you do not have your Q4 plans, drop me a line. Let's get you started. The time is now. We're only 48 hours into the new quarter. It's not too late to get started. All right, thanks for watching. Appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Logan out.